Good morning and welcome to our weekly show, Mario's Perspective USA. From the beginning, we always said that we're going to speak about different topics, different things that go on in our country. We try to focus on current affairs and what's going on in our country that's important to us. But today we're going to make a small turn and talk about a different subject, and it's called the NFL. We're going to talk about the NFL and things that people don't want to speak about the NFL. We represent the Hispanic community, the biggest community, the biggest minority in the United States of America. It's not the black community, the largest. It's the Hispanic community, the largest minority community in the United States of America. You know, people are very confused sometimes and believe what media commercials or what people say in the streets, but the facts are facts. And the Hispanic community has been really left behind by the NFL. They leave a lot to be desired. And I'll explain that very clearly, the reason why. So you see, what people don't know and what people don't talk about is in Mexico, they started transmitting NFL games around 1971. That's why there's a lot of Cowboy fans, Steeler fans, Patriot fans in Mexico. I would say those are the three biggest teams as far as fans are concerned. And probably the 49ers. I think those are the four teams that people really love in Mexico. While in Europe, England started televising the NFL in 1981, 10 years after Mexico. What people don't know, most of the NFL Super Bowl tickets that are sold internationally speaking are purchased from people from Mexico. Yeah, they don't know that. And they're more expensive than any ticket that's sold in England, France, Germany, and other countries in Europe. Yet, the NFL does very little for the Hispanic community. The last three Super Bowl halftime shows were primarily done by black artists. I get it. 70% of the NFL players are black. And a lot of shows on ESPN, like Get Up and First Take, are usually filled with black former players or hostess. But our community is not representative. It's not representative correctly, yet we purchase a lot of tickets. We buy a lot of stuff across the United States of America. Many Mexican nationals come to the NFL games, but the NFL does nothing for us. They don't care about us. And they misrepresent us because there's a true fact. We are the largest minority group in the United States of America. But let's talk about the Hispanic community. Within the Hispanic community, the largest groups are Mexican Americans. Now, let's talk about the Mexican Americans. We go to the NFL games, we purchase their shirts, their jerseys, their caps, but the NFL does nothing for us. How many Mexican Americans are in the NFL? How many Mexican Americans are in the NFL channel? How many Mexican Americans are on ESPN? Talking about the NFL. See, this leaves a lot to be desired. This is a very touchy subject. And the NFL does not want to talk about this. They don't. Because they don't have an answer. You know, I consider the NFL too biased. It's too to the left. Yes, most of the players are black. No, we purchase more tickets in the black community. We purchase more jerseys in the black community. We spend more money in the NFL. And yet the NFL does nothing for us. You know, this has got to change. It's got to change. This is not right. And the reason why it's not right is because they make assumptions. Hispanics will always, whatever we say, they'll do. Well, it's like the song, The Natural Man. He starts out by saying, folks used to do what other people said. Now it's the new days, baby. People want to do whatever they want to do on their own. And it's true. Something like that. It's not accurate, but something like that. We don't want to follow. We're not followers. Mexican Americans have always been leaders. Okay? Let's get that perfectly straight. But the NFL leaves a lot to be desired. They have 3 games in Europe. 1 in Mexico City. Just 1. The guys who pay more money for Super Bowl tickets internationally than any other country in the world. The ones that televised NFL games 10 years before Europe. No respect. And like I was saying, the last 3 Super Bowl halftime shows were primarily done by African Americans. What about people like Carlos Santana or even international groups like Maná? We're very big within our Hispanic community. They have no respect. Okay? They keep spoon feeding us what they want us to eat. We're not children anymore. And this is wrong. This reminds me of what President Biden did. And I voted for the guy. I regret it. But I did vote for the guy. When he announced that the next member of the Supreme Court was going to be a black woman, that was prejudice. That was against the law. Imagine if a big company would say, my next CEO has to be a white guy. There will be marches. And this is what I don't understand. I do not agree how George Floyd died. I do not agree with that. I'm against that. But let's be honest. The guy wasn't a saint. He had a record. He wasn't, let's just say he wasn't the best citizen of the United States of America. Yet, when this president, who's done a terrible job, announced that the next member of the Supreme Court has to be a black woman, there was no marches. There was a lot of people protesting because different from the Hispanic community, different from the black community, we don't use the race card. We don't hide behind threats. And I think that's what the NFL's problem is. They're afraid of the black community. Well, they're awakening a sleeping giant. Japan made a mistake. December 7, 1941. They awakened a big giant called the United States of America. Well, the NFL now is awakening a huge giant, which is the Hispanic community, mainly Mexican Americans. And I'm not going to leave this by just talking about this one time. We're going to talk about this over and over and over and we're going to get people involved. Why? Because it's not right. I'm tired of hearing all these shows on TV and ESPN, and they're all very biased towards the black community. Lately, they only talk about Lamar Jackson. Who is this guy? He's 1-3 in the playoffs. 1-3 losses. I remember when Vince Young was coming out, when RG3 was coming out, even when Michael Vick played, he was better than all those other losers. But did he win the Super Bowl? No. And let's talk about black quarterbacks, now that we're on the subject. There's been 11 black quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, according to most people. I'm not calling Patrick Mahomes black. I'm not, because his mother's white. So I've never heard him say, I'm black. That's TV. That's ESPN. That's the NFL. I'm not going to do that. But let's go by the numbers. 11 black quarterbacks have been to Super Bowl. Only 4 have won. Two of them were done by Patrick Mahomes. And I'm not sure. I can't call him black. Cannot do that. So, everybody talks about how there's a lot of racial discrimination in the United States. Sounds familiar. Well, we got to stop calling people black if you don't know if they're black. You got to stop. I mean, Patrick Mahomes married a white girl, has a beautiful, beautiful daughter, green eyes. She doesn't look black. So, I, for one, will not call Patrick Mahomes black. Sorry, Stephen A. Sorry, those other bozos that come out on ESPN. No, I will not do that. I don't like talking about sports, and I'm going to do that very, very few times. But this is one of those times when you got to say what's on your mind. And this is what's on my mind. Okay. TV is controlled. You can't watch a commercial without the black actress coming out or actor coming out. What about the Mexican Americans? What about the Hispanic community? Somebody has got to speak up.